Hi everyone, welcome to Simple Concepts. I'm your educator Niyati Pearl. Guys, in this particular video, we will be learning about banking system in India and the non-performing asset. So before we start up with the actual video, let me tell you all, आपको अनअकैडमी का प्लस सब्सक्रिप्शन मिल सकता है ऑन विच देर आर 4 एपिक बैचेस आर गोइंग ऑन wherein you have for one whole year preparation which has already started from 1st of June. अगर आपको अपना UPSC CSE का 2021 में अगर आपका सिलेक्शन आपको इंश्योर करना है then do join in to Unacademy एंड वहाँ पे प्लस सब्सक्रिप्शन लीजिए आप. अगर आप वहाँ पे लेते हो तो दीज आर द बेनिफिट्स दैट यू आर गेटिंग. द 1 फुल ईयर आपको सब्सक्रिप्ट मतलब यहाँ पे सिलेबस कवरेज मिलेगा वेरिन आपके प्रीलिम्स मेंस के टेस्ट सीरीज भी वहाँ पे कवर होंगे. आपको डेडिकेटेड डाउट क्लियरिंग सेशंस रख दिए जाएंगे. ऑल्सो इंटरव्यू प्रिपरेशन में आपको टिप्स एंड ट्रिक्स वहाँ पे मिलेंगे. आपका पूरा इंटरव्यू का सिलेक्शन जो है वहाँ पे डिस्कस होगा. आपको बहुत सारे टिप्स मिलेंगे. अगेन आपको यहाँ पे जो लेट नाइट बाइलिंगुअल बैचेस भी हैं यहाँ पे विच हैव ऑलरेडी स्टार्टेड फ्रॉम 1st of June. यहाँ पे आपको दिस इज स्पेशली फॉर वर्किंग प्रोफेशनल्स, फॉर एग्जांपल हाउसवाइफ्स एक्सेट्रा. ओके, और अगर आप अनअकैडमी का प्लस सब्सक्रिप्शन लेते हो तो आपको 10% डिस्काउंट मिलेगा इफ़ यू यूज़ दिस कोड SIMPLEYT. ये हमारा सब्सक्रिप्शन कोड है आपके लिए. सो देन यू कैन अवेल 10% डिस्काउंट ऑन जो भी आप प्राइस पे करेंगे उस पे. ऑल्सो यहाँ पे अनअकैडमी का UPSC चैंपियनशिप चल रहा है. यू कैन एनरोल नाउ फॉर फ्री, जहाँ पे आपको राकेश वर्मा सर, मृणाल पटेल सर और आतिश माथुर सर से आपको बहुत अच्छा गाइडेंस मिल सकता है. सो देन डू टेक अनअकैडमी प्लस सब्सक्रिप्शन. हैविंग सेड दैट, लेट्स स्टार्ट आवर टुडेज वीडियो. ऑल्सो गाइज, हमारे सिंपल कॉन्सेप्ट्स UPSC के चैनल पे जो भी हम सिलेबस कवर करते हैं उसका अगर आपको इन द फॉर्म ऑफ नोट्स अगर आपको चाहिए हो, इन द फॉर्म ऑफ PDF सारे नोट्स तो आपको मिल सकते हैं हमारे ग्रुप पे. द लिंक ऑफ द ग्रुप इज गिवन इन द डिस्क्रिप्शन बिलो. हमारा टेलीग्राम ग्रुप है. इफ़ यू आर अनेबल टू फाइंड द लिंक, मतलब आप ग्रुप अगर लिंक के थ्रू आप नहीं फाइंड आउट कर पा रहे हो, देन जस्ट गो टू योर टेलीग्राम अकाउंट. वहाँ पे सर्च बार पे अगर आप सिंपल कॉन्सेप्ट्स UPSC के नाम से अगर आप सर्च करते हैं देन यू विल बी एबल टू ज्वाइन आवर ग्रुप. वहाँ पे ज्वाइन ज़रूर कीजिएगा हमारा ग्रुप, जहाँ पे हम बहुत सारे क्विजेस और बहुत सारे नोट्स वहाँ पे शेयर होते हैं. सो डू ज्वाइन इन. सो लेट्स स्टार्ट आवर टुडेज डिस्कशन गाइज. So guys, as we all know, banking system is the backbone of any nation's economy. For an economy to remain healthy and going, it is important that the banking system grows faster and yet be stable. This catches biggest dilemma of policymakers, how to achieve both the objectives simultaneously. Over a period of several indicators have been developed which gauge the depth and stability of the banking system. Examples can be non-performing assets, capital adequacy ratio, that is also called as CAR, etc. Now similarly, mechanisms to ensure their stability have also been developed. Some of the examples can be CRR or SLR, that is Basel Conventions, regular directions from the RBI, Financial Stability and Development Council, etc. In this section, we will talk about these indicators and mechanism, and they have also been, they have also been in news for quite of some time. Basel III norms and non-performing assets or NPAs. So we will try to first clarify the related concepts, then understand the seriousness of the issue, gauge the impact on the Indian economy, and then offer some possible solutions as well as look into some of the committee's report which have been examined in this matter. So in this particular entire discussion, part 1 of part 2 series, we will discuss about the Basel norms, and NPAs will be dealt comprehensively in our upcoming videos. So discussion about the Basel norms. So Basel is a city in Switzerland which is also the headquarters of the Bureau of International Settlements, which is also known as the BIS. The BIS fosters cooperation among central banks with a common goal of financial stability and common standards of banking regulations. Currently there are 27 member nations in the committee. So Basel guidelines refers to the broad supervisory standard formulated by this group of central banks called the Basel Committee on the Banking Supervision or BCBS. The set of agreement by the BCBS, which mainly focuses on risk to banks and financial systems, are called as Basel Accord. So the purpose of the accord is to ensure that the financial institutions have enough capital on account to meet obligations and absorb the unexpected losses. So India has accepted Basel Accords for the banking system. So if the Basel norms are banking standards, then the question comes as who has the authority to make them? Are they mandatory to every country? So as we have said earlier, Basel Committee makes these norms, and the committee's decisions have no legal force. Rather, the committee formulates supervisory standards and guidelines and recommends statements of best practice in the expectation of the individual national authorities will implement them. In this way, the committee encourages convergence towards the common standard and monitors them implementation, but without attempting detailed harmonization of member countries' supervisory approaches. So India can either accept them or reject them depending on the kind of financial system it wants. So far we have implemented or wish to implement all the Basel norms. So let us speak about Basel 1. So in 1988, BCBS introduced capital measures system called as Basel Capital Accord, also called as Basel. It was also called as Basel 1. Okay, so it focused almost entirely on credit risk. It defined capital and structure of risk weights for banks. Naturally, if the capital with banks is adequate to cover the risk, example the power plant, then they have invested in, then the bank is safe. Now the minimum capital requirement was fixed at 8% of the risk weighted asset, that is RWA. RWA means, guys, assets with different risk profiles. For example, an asset backed by collateral would carry lesser risk as compared to the personal loan, which have no collateral. India adopted Basel I guidelines in 1999, I precise, and the Basel norms are set up by Basel Committee on Banking Supervision. So it is important to understand that Basel Accords have been the result of cooperation by the countries over all these years. Okay, guys, so now the question comes as, but why cooperate between member countries when banks operate with national boundaries? So it is because banks lend not only its countrymen but also other nations. So also private investors and sovereign nations take loans from banks across the other nations. Further, the financial system of the world is so interconnected that one incident of banking collapses has its repercussions all over the world. There can be no better example than the 2008 global recession, as we all know. So अभी भी आप देख सकते हो कि जिस प्रकार से डिफ्लेशन या फिर इन्फ्लेशन, जिस प्रकार से चेंजेस हो रहे हैं एंटायर ग्लोबली, उससे इंडिया भी कितना ज़्यादा अफेक्ट हो रहा है. नॉट जस्ट इंडिया, बहुत सारे बाकी के वर्ल्ड कंट्रीज भी अफेक्ट हो रहे हैं. So therefore, global cooperation on banking matters is absolutely necessary in today's world. And not only cooperation but also adoption of some uniform standard is also important. So again, why uniform standard? That is the main question that might come into your mind. So bankers and investors invest over the world, preferably in markets where they get best returns. The markets will give returns only when the economy is stable. And economy will be stable only when banking system is stable, right? So hence it is important for investors and agencies to measure the stability of the banking system. If all the nations adopt different standards, then calculating stability figures will be big headache for investors. Also, suppose some nations run banks on better standards, that is, better risk management, better returns, then lower exposure to volatile markets, etc. Then they have a better chance of getting foreign investment. But all the nations adopt uniform standard, then at least the investors can be attracted by only the strength of the economy. Hence, it is important to have uniform standards, especially when it comes to banking system, which is so complex and vast. The Basel norms try to achieve exactly the same till date, 3 different Basel Accords or norms have come each with a better safeguard than the next one. Right? Now let us understand about Basel II. So in 2004, Basel II guidelines were published by BCBS, which were considered to be the refined and reformed versions of Basel I Accord. The guidelines were based on 3 parameters. First one was the bank should maintain minimum capital adequacy requirement of 8% of the risk asset. In India, such practice is equivalent to maintain a capital adequacy ratio, that is CAR. So the second was the banks were needed to develop and use better risk management techniques in monitoring and managing all the 3 types of risk, that is credit and increased disclosure requirements. Increased disclosure requirements raise the confidence of investors and depositors in the bank. The more transparent a bank is, the more stable it is deemed to be. Now third one was banks need to mandatorily disclose their risk exposure etc. to the central bank. This is important so that the central bank, for India it is RBI, it is aware of the risk that the banking system is going through. There is a practice in India to publish biannual function stability reports by the RBI. The latest report which I have considered over here was in June 2014. So the Basel II norms in India and overseas are yet to be fully implemented. So you will find some technical words like risk exposure etc. in our coming slides. So we won't be going in detail. We only need to know their general meaning as far as the UPSC CSE is concerned. Okay, we are not going to do PhD in this entire topic. Now speaking about Basel III, in 2010 Basel III guidelines were released. These guidelines were introduced in response to the financial crisis of 2008. A need was felt to further strengthen the system as banks in developed economies were undercapitalized, over-leveraged and had greater reliance on short-term funding. Too much short-term funding makes a bank prone to risk. Banks generally rely on short-term funding because it is profitable. Also, the quantity and quality of capital under Base II were deemed insufficient to contain any further risk. This was because the banking system was growing. The world economy was growing too, hence what is sufficient earlier was not sufficient now. So the Basel III norms aim at making most banking activities such as their tradition book activities more capital intensive. Then the guidelines aim to promote a more resilient banking system by focusing on 4 vital banking parameters vis-a-vis the capital leverage, funding and liquidity. So again we need not go in technicalities, just the broad picture here I am giving you. So this is how it was broadly done. First one is capital. So the capital requirement as weighted for risky assets for banks was more than double. Example, we can say 4.5% from 2% in Basel II Accord for the common equity. Now when it comes to leverage, the leverage basically means buying assets with borrowed money to multiply the gain. The underlying belief is that the asset will return the investors more than the interest he has to pay on the loan. Obviously, doing so is risky business, thus the Basel III puts a limit on the banks for doing this. So the number are not important here, getting the concept is important. So speaking about funding and liquidity, banks can be subjected to a lot of risk if all depositors come and all of them ask the money at the same time. So this is a hypothetical situation basically, but it has happened in real with Lehman Brothers, the bank whose collapse gave us in 2008 recession. So Basel II puts a requirement for the banks to maintain some liquid asset all the time. Liquid assets are those which can be easily converted into cash. In India, this practice can be correlated with maintaining CRR or we can say SLR, right? So speaking about the implementation of Basel norms in India, the RBI has postponed the implementation of these norms to 2019. Already they have done that. So it is important to note that it is not easy to implement these. It was not easy to implement these norms as it required several changes in the then banking system. There were several challenges in the successful implementation of Basel III norms. The first one was higher capital requirements for banks. The private banks have the autonomy to raise capital for the markets, but the public sector banks have to rely on government mostly. So the government had recently decided to infuse 1,200 crore rupees in the PSBs. So in the coming years, even more and more will be required. The second one is more technology development. Implementing the norms would require much more sophisticated technology and management styles that the Indian banks are presently using. Upgrading both will impose huge cost on the banks and hurt their profitability in the coming years. Third one was liquidity crunch. So banks would need to invest more on liquidity assets. These assets do not give handsome returns usually, which would reduce the bank's operating profit margin. Further, higher development of more funds in the liquid assets may crowd out good private sector investment and also affect the economic growth. Now the question which comes over here is that what are the ways ahead for the banks? So to address these issues and to protect their profitability margins, banks need to look beyond the regularity compliance and take proactive actions. In this regard, the following strategies need to be adopted. You can note this strategies down so that it will be easy for you all to write your essay papers, also your इस बारे में अगर आपको कुछ क्वेश्चंस आते हैं तो दीज आर इम्पॉर्टेंट. आप कंक्लूजन में आपके आंसर्स के ये सारे पॉइंट्स लिख सकते हो. फर्स्ट वन इज चेंज इन द बिजनेस मिक्स. So they will need to lend more and more profitable yet in the safer sectors, for example corporate loans. But even corporate loans in India have been under a lot of stress. Banks are facing increasing NPAs, that is non-profitable assets. We will talk about it in the coming video. So still they are safer and more profitable than the retail loans. Priority sectors, that is lending PSL, however limits their options. Second one is low costing fund. So one of the most important factors to meet the new regulations is to have stable low cost deposit base. For this, banks need to focus more on having business correspondents, facilitators to reach customers, as adding branches will increase cost and have an impact on the profit margin. So the RBI is thinking to they have already done actually UID based mobile wallets to increase the reach of the financial systems. Perhaps the banks can tie up with wallet operators based on some innovative business model, and there are many opportunities. They have already started doing it in fact. So third one is improvement in the system and procedures. Refining the system and procedures may help banks economies their risk weighted assets, which will help reduce capital requirements in some extent. So it is possible that they would impose cost in the short run, but they would yield greater returns in the future. So further we can say that it is clear that banking system in the coming times will have to go through a lot of rough weather, increasing operational complexities, global interconnectedness, and the high economic growth worldwide will present several challenges for the banks. While strategies like Basel III will of course address these challenges, what is even more important is their proper implementations. More than this, the banks will need to have wider outlook. They must anticipate changes in the Indian economic system and react accordingly. Indian banking regulations are one of the most stringent and consequently one of the most safest in the world. So let us evolve each time better and stronger. That's all we can say for now. So quickly to summarize what all are the things that we have learned. So we have learned what Basel norms are and why they hold such importance for the Indian banking system. Then we understood the challenges the banking system will have to face in implementing them. Further, we have suggested a possible way out. Now, the previous discussion which we have done highlighted why stability in the banking system is more important. Following that discussion, now in the further slides we will be discussing one of the biggest challenges threatening the stability of the Indian banking system, that is the non-performing assets or NPAs. We will discuss it in a much broader way. So the banking business has boomed since independence, particularly after the liberalization, privatization and globalization reforms. So the sector is currently valued rupees 115 lakh crore, and it is expected to more than double at rupees 288 lakhs by the crore by the end of 2021. Out of this, 70% of the business is being done by the PSUs banks. An interesting fact is that SBI market share outs total banking business to be 22%. So basically these figures are not important for you all. आपको just fodder material के लिए मैं बता रही हूँ. So looking at the enormous size of the banking industry, the NPAs are big cause of the concern. Now in the further slides we will first look into some of the basis of NPAs. Then we will move on to understand their cause and implications. Then examine the challenges that banks will face because of them, and finally put forward possible solutions. So speaking about, let us now discuss what are NPAs in detail. So speaking about what are NPAs. So generally speaking, NPA is any asset of a bank which is not producing any income. In other words, a loan or lease that is not meeting its stated principal and interest payments. On the bank's balance sheet, loans made to customers are listed as their assets. So the big risk to the bank is when customers who take out loans stop making their payments, causing the value of the loan assets to decline. Now the criterias are: loans don't go bad right away. Most loans allow customers a certain grace period, then they are marked overdue. After a certain number of days, the loan is classified as non-performing loan. Banks usually classify as non-performing assets any commercial loans which are more than 90 days overdue, and any consumer loans which are more than 180 days overdue. For agricultural loans, if any interest and the installments or principal remains overdue for 2 harvest season, then it is declared as non-performing asset, but this overdue should not exceed more than 2 years. After 2 years, any unpaid loan installments will be classified as the NPAs, okay, non-performing asset. So speaking about the categories, the substandard is when the NPAs have aged 12 months. Then the doubtful is when the NPAs have aged less than 12 months, and loss assets is when the bank or its auditors have identified the loss but it has not been written off. So after a certain amount of time, a bank will try to recoup its money by foreclosing on its property that secures the loan. The way money is reoccupied is a highly continuous issues, and it just with the banks but also with the microfinance institutions or MFIs. So we will discuss this in our later slides. All of these can be explained in much more technical manner, but that is not required for our CSE preparation. For example, we do not need the list of all the conditions that make the banks declare an asset as NPA. Like in respect to derivative transactions, the overdue receivable representation positively marked to a market value of a derivative contracts, if these remain unpaid for period of 90 days from the special due date for payment. So only understanding the basic concept will suffice here. UPSC is not going to ask you these details, but about the impact and solutions of NPA. Even in prelims, these details will not be asked, so we can avoid the technicalities and jargon here. It is not useful for your GS paper, even if it may be important, but it will be useful for your economics optional paper, which is of course we are not discussing over here. Okay. So let us now briefly discuss the extent of NPAs. So the gross NPAs of the domestic banks jumped to 4.2% of total lending by the end of September 2013 from 3.6% 6 months before, according to the Reserve Bank of India. As per the recent warning which was there a few years back, the RBI bad loans NPAs could climb from 7% of total advances by 2015. So in absolute terms, gross NPAs are estimated to touch 2.50 lakh crores by the end of this year. So this is equal to the size of the budget of Uttar Pradesh. The biggest chunk of the source debts is in the state-run banks or public sector banks for PSBs, which accounts for 2/3 of the loans, but 80% of it's a bad asset. This is how NPAs curves has been moving for the recent years. So private sectors and foreign lenders are at better placed. So their NPAs in proportion to their lending is lesser than that of the PSBs. Okay. Now let us look into what exactly matters and basically why it matters. So the higher is the amount of non-performing assets or NPAs, the weaker will be the bank's revenue system. In short term, many banks have the ability to handle an increase in non-performing assets. They might have strong reserves or other capital that can be used to offset the losses, but after a while, if that capital is used up, non-performing loans will be imperil a bank's health. Think of the non-performing asset as dead weight of the balance sheet. Here is the impact of NPAs. We will discuss one by one. So as the NPA of banks will rise, it will bring the scarcity of funds in the Indian security markets. Few banks will be willing to lend if they are not sure about the recovery of their money. The shareholders of the banks will lose lot of money, as banks themselves will find it tough to survive in the market. Third one is they will lend to crisis of confidence in the market. The price of loans, that is the interest rate, will shoot up badly, which has been happening now. So shooting of interest rate will directly impact the investors who wish to take loans for setting up infrastructural industrial projects, etc. So it will also impact the retail consumers like us, who will have to shell out, we will have to sell out the higher interest of for a loan. So all of these will lead to situations of take of funds from security market. This will hurt the overall demand in the Indian economy, and finally it will lead to a lower growth rates and of course higher inflation because of the higher cost of capital. This trend may continue in a vicious circle and it deepens the crisis. The total NPAs have touched figures close to the size of UP budget. So imagine if all NPAs was recovered, how well it can argue for the Indian economy. So guys, that's all for this particular class. We will be discussing the further issues and unke solutions in our next particular video. If you like this video, then do hit the like button. आपके कोई सुझाव है important, then do mention them in the comment section below. If you are new to our platform, then do hit the subscribe button. वहाँ पे notification bell आएगा, उसको भी click कीजिएगा so that you can get notified every time we put any video on our YouTube channel. Thanks a lot for watching guys and take care.